If you want a man to value you, there's one thing that you need to know. Men value women more who they work for and earn. But how do you make him work for you? It's really simple, really simple. Be a challenge. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you're ready to learn how to be a challenge for a man, type yes into the chat and let's get started. Hello, my name is Matthew Coast, and today we're going to be talking about 7 different things that you can do to be a challenge for a man. So let's talk about it. Number 1 is wait to sleep together. So there's a woman in our community not too long ago. I've actually talked about this a few times, where she said that my materials helped change everything for her. And she said one of the main things that changed things for her was that she stopped hooking up with guys on the first couple of dates. And all of a sudden it went from guys disappearing on her all the time to suddenly looking at her like she is relationship material and wanting to be in a relationship with her and competing to be in a relationship with her. And so it's important to wait. But what do you want to wait for? So my suggestion is that you have some standards that a man needs to meet in order for you to hook up together. And so what kind of standards would you want to have before you hook up with a guy? Let's talk about some things. One would be an emotional connection, like a genuine emotional connection, not just kind of a lust-driven connection or that biological urge or that, girl, you're looking so fine type of thing, but like a deeper, real connection that you have on a level of who you are, right? Connecting on who you are, sharing vulnerabilities, getting deeper, actually caring about who both the two of you are together, knowing about each other. That's an emotional connection. That's far more important. It's called intimacy, and it makes hooking up so much better. And the second thing that you want to do is, or the second thing you want to wait for, is his investment of time, energy, emotion, and risk. So this is the second standard. You want him to invest, right? Why? Because men value things that they invest in. And the more that he invests in you, of his time, his energy, his emotion, his finances, his risk, right? The more risk that he takes with you, the more that he's going to feel like you're valuable and he doesn't want to let you go. Another standard you want to have is him telling you that he's looking for something real and you actually asking about it. And so sometimes I talk to women about this, and it's like, some guys at first might not know what it is that they want with you, and that's fine. You don't get overly invested in him, which means that you shouldn't be hooking up with a guy like that. And then the next standard that you want to make sure that you have is spending enough time together that you actually get to know one another, right? So this is so important, right? You want to actually know each other before you're like hooking up with these guys. And a lot of people are they're hooking up all willy-nilly whenever, right? Like they meet them and they're so like about each other that they just hook up together and they don't even know who the other person is really at all. And so those are some of the standards that I suggest. What other standards might you want to have? Type them into the chat. If you're here with us, say hi and let us know where in the world you're watching this from. Say hi in the chat and let us know, because it's cool to see women from all over the world watching these live streams. So number two is you want to require a relationship in order to hook up together, right? Require a relationship. And I know I can hear the little voices right now speaking through the camera, and there's some women going, but Matt, we really need to know each other well before I consider a relationship. And I say, yeah, maybe you should know him pretty well before you consider, hooking up together, the whole bang-a-lang-a-ding-dong. You want to wait a little bit and get to know each other first, right? Spend some time, get to know each other. And then there's actually a question that I hear a lot, a complaint, or maybe it's like a So something where they're like, but I don't want to do that because, and they say, but Matt, what if the sex is bad? What if I don't really, if it's really bad in bed, I don't want to be in a relationship with this guy. And, and then I'm going to have to break up with them. And I'm like, yeah, but you're going to do one of two things anyway, right? You're either going to, if it's bad, if hooking up is bad, if he's bad in bed, you're going to do one of two things anyway. You're either going to, one, ghost him anyway, or two, you're going to have to break up with him anyway, right? You're going to do one of those two things anyway. And so you might as well make sure that you're setting yourself up for the best possible situation, because women have the most power before hooking up with a guy, and men have the most power before getting into a relationship. And that power dynamic equals itself out a lot more, and the woman gets a lot more power when after that, right? After hooking up or after the relationship. And so you want that to be about the same time. You want it to happen at the same time, because then you're not putting yourself into this position where you're like, is he going to want a relationship with me? Please want a relationship with me. I'm already giving you all the relationship benefits. Please want a relationship with me at this point. You don't want to be in that situation. It's a bad situation to be in. Can it work? Yeah, absolutely. A lot of my materials help with that, but you don't want to be in that situation in the first place. So number three is have your own opinions. So it's not a bad thing to have your own opinions about things, as long as you're not like authoritarian and dictatorial about it. And as long as when you express your opinions or you're arguing or whatever, you're not creating a divide between the two of you, and it only brings you closer in the end. You can actually, if you have disagreements, it can actually bring you guys closer, because it creates some friction, which allows for there to be more intimacy, because you're both taking risks and telling the other person that you have these personalities and these things that you like and that you don't like, and all this other stuff. And so you want to have your own opinion, but you want to face challenges, you want to face fights, you want to face anything like you're on the same team. It's something that I call the partnership principle. And if it gets too heated or it gets too personal or something like that, tell him that you can see his point of view and that you respect his opinion and move on. And another little tip that you want to have is have some kind of pet name for each other. Have a pet name, and if things get really heated, you can always bring up his pet name, something like Boo Boo Honey Cakes. That's probably not a good one. Maybe you don't want to call him Boo Boo Honey Cakes, but if you're calling him Babe, right, and you're like you're fighting and it's like getting heated, and you're like, and you stop, and he's all frustrated, and you're like, touch him, take his hand, and you go, babe, babe, babe. Right? All of a sudden, it changes the entire dynamic of the argument and the fight, because you're like, hey, we have this connection. We're together on this. We're not fighting. We don't need to fight. We don't need to argue. We need to be on the same team and move through life together on the same team. That's what you're doing here. Number 4 is have likes and dislikes. So places that you like to eat, places you don't like, things you like to do, things that you don't like to do. I like this, I don't like that, right? And it's kind of like a cliche out there, actually, about women being like, oh, honey, whatever you want to do, right? And then the guy's like, oh, well, let's go do this. And the woman's like, well, we're not doing that, right? So it's better to let him know ahead of time, like what you're interested in, or give him some options, than it is to completely open it up to anything and then shoot down his ideas of what he wants to do, because it's kind of emasculating when you do that, right? He wants to lead, you want him to lead, but he also wants to be a good leader. And so if you're like, oh, no, you lead, you be the masculine force, and then you start shooting down, you start poo-pooing his ideas, it's like, oh, it's horrible. And so you want to have likes and dislikes, but you want to be smart about him and just not shoot down all of his ideas, and let him know ahead of time what you're interested in. Like if you're interested in doing these different things, or you're like, hey, I'd really love to do sushi. I mean, it's not a problem to do those kinds of things, because he can still lead. He can still decide where to go and what to do and all that kind of stuff inside this framework of knowing your likes and dislikes, so that he can make sure that he's making you happy and making you feel good and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you? If you get what I'm saying, say yes in the chat. If you don't get what I'm talking about, go ahead and ask your questions. We can talk about that stuff here in just a minute. So number five is having standards just in general, just having standards for the people that you have in your life, for the things that you do, the food that you eat, just your life standards, right? Building yourself up, having a standard for yourself and who you are as a human being. Because the more you have standards for yourself, the more a guy's going to look at you and be like, man, this woman is amazing. She's working on herself. She only allows people into her life that are a positive influence on her and all that kind of stuff. And it's really, really powerful and cool for a guy who's working on things and building himself and all that kind of stuff as well. And so things that people need in order to be in your life, things people need to meet, right? So you're not just friends with anybody. You don't just have anything in your life. You have things that you like, standards that you want to meet, all that kind of stuff. It's better to have smaller groups of friends with better people than having friends because you knew them for a really long time and they don't have your best interests at heart, or they're toxic, or they have all these horrible opinions that you are now getting because you're hanging out with them, and they have bad thoughts and opinions and stuff about men, and it's rubbing off on you, and it's just a horrible, horrible thing. You don't want to do any of that. Instead, you want to have some standards for yourself and for the people in your life. Number six is create and maintain a separate identity. This is something called the law of identification. And the law of identification states that the more that you identify with something, the more you act in accordance with that identity. And so think about it. If you identify as being a couple with a guy, you'll act as if you're a couple, even if you're not, right? Have you ever done that? Have you ever identified with being a couple with a man and you weren't actually a couple and you treated him like you're a couple? Or if you identify as being completely independent, you'll act completely independent, even if you're in a relationship. Raise your hand if you've done that. Say yes if you've done that. How many women here have acted completely independent, even though they were in a relationship, right? And so the magic is in the middle. The magic is always in the middle. Here's the left, here's the right, here's the extreme, here's the other extreme. Magic's in the middle. Magic's in the middle. Most of the time, the magic's in the middle, unless you're using the polarity principle. You want a separate identity, a separate life from any man that you're seeing, but you also want to have space for him to be there, because if you're so busy that you don't have time for him in your life, he's going to feel like you don't have time for him. And so he's not going to want to pursue that with you, because have you ever dated a guy who like has absolutely no time for you? He can only hang out with you like once every week and a half or something. And sometimes he's busy on that day. And it's just like, what are we even doing here? Why are we even trying to do this? Or he can only meet, for 2 hours at this time, or, only, at late at night or something like that. It's just, you don't want to be that for a guy, right? If you want to have a guy in your life, because you want to be a challenge, but you don't want to be so much of a challenge that he feels like you're completely unattainable. It's something that I call the attainability principle. He needs to feel like he can attain you, like he can have you in his life, like things are moving towards a relationship, like it's possible for the two of you to be a couple together. So If you identify too much with the relationship, you'll become obsessed with it. If you identify too much as being independent, a man won't feel like you really want him there or have space for him there. So number seven is give him some space to miss you and think about you. So he can't miss you if you're always in contact with him, if you're always there, if you're always around. You're not a challenge if he doesn't have to do anything in order to get you, right? Give him some space and then, and take some time away and then come back and give him some space and come back. Something I call connection cycling. And then when you're together, you make it great. You make them feel really good. Men aren't going to remember everything. Men don't remember everything about what you said or what you did or all the little things that happened. But men will remember how you made him feel when he was around you. And more specifically, how you made him feel about himself when he was around you. And so you want him to feel really good when he's around you. So when he's away from you, he's like, oh, I want to be back together with her. I feel so amazing when I'm around her. I just can't wait to be around her again. It's so amazing. All right. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask your questions in the chat and I'll get to them here in just a second. And I am just going to review these one more time. So number one is you want to wait before hooking up together. Number two, require a relationship in order to hook up together. Number three, have your own opinions. Number four, have likes and dislikes. Number five, have standards in general for people in your life, for yourself. Number six, maintain and create a separate identity. And remember that the magic is in the middle there. And number seven is give him some space to miss and think about you. So what questions do you have? What questions do you have here? Go ahead and ask your questions and we will talk about them. We will. Mutki says, hi, Matt. How are you from India? I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Thank you for asking. I am doing great. Women from all over the world. It's cool. It's cool. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask your questions here in the chat. And we will get to them here in just 1 second. Sarah says, hi, question. If you have already hooked up, how do you backtrack or is it game over? Well, it's not necessarily game over, right? You just want to make sure that you're setting things up so that you're not getting weird, right? Because a lot of times men or women get weird after hooking up together. And then it's like this weird thing where they're like, do you love me? Right. And it's like, wow, this is weird. We're just having fun. Right. And instead, what you want to do is continue to be a challenge, continue to have standards, continue to have preferences, continue to do all those things that we were just talking about in order to get more access to you, to spend more time with you, assuming that he enjoyed the time that he has spent with you already, which hopefully he has, and hopefully you've created good experiences with him. And, as long as he has a deep emotional connection, or if he himself is not in abundance, he's in scarcity, guys are far more likely, if they are in scarcity, to look at you and have one-itis and be like, oh, she's so amazing and all that kind of stuff, right? It's not the end. It's not the end if you hook up with a guy. It can be, right? If you don't build an emotional connection, if there's, nothing there, if he's in abundance, if, it was just this fun thing that you guys had and he doesn't really like you that much or whatever, if he's not really ready, if there are all those things that you didn't end up asking and talking about because you were so sucked into the moment instead of actually having a conversation with him and finding out things and using your brain and your heart, it could be over after that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And so if you are in that situation, you just want to make sure that you continue to be a challenge, that you continue to connect with him when you do connect with him in a positive way that makes him feel really good about himself. Don't get weird on him. If you feel like you're getting too attached, pull back. Make sure that you're getting yourself into abundance, especially if you haven't talked about exclusivity, if you haven't talked about a relationship, any of that kind of stuff. You want to be in abundance until one of these guys does that with you. And so that's really what you want to do. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's game over, but you can't backtrack, right? Backtracking is really, really difficult to do. If all of a sudden you're like, no, we're not doing that anymore. And, we're backtracking and you need to do these things, right? It doesn't work very well because it feels really kind of gross and manipulative to him. And so you don't want to backtrack, and you don't want to start kind of throwing things on top of them there. But you do want to have standards and all those kinds of things. The question is he going to meet those standards? Is he that interested in you really, right? And you don't know that, and you're not going to know that until you start putting those standards in place. And it sucks because you've already taken that risk and you've already slept with him, and you may have already started feeling a lot for him and even more for him because you slept with him. And so you just want to be smart in the future and just do smart things and make sure that he's, doing things the right way. So I hope that answers your question. I'm going to be in Texas here in a couple of weeks. Hi from California. Hello. Lots of people. Western Pennsylvania. She says, love your videos. Where'd you get all the knowledge? Hello. Marlencia says, why mans are thinking about hooking up when is said about intimacy? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Maybe if you explain a little bit more what you're talking about there, we can answer your question. Alexandra says, wow, you look perfect. Okay. Sarah says, I stayed with a guy for 6 months and he told me he really likes me, but not enough to commit. Made no sense, so I was done. I am now with someone whom cares, whom asked me out after a month. Well, that's great. That's great. Lynn says, why should we do this even when they are 68? I feel like it is playing a game. Well, I mean, it's just psychology, right? It's just human psychology, human biology. Like, things change a little bit when you get older. Your biology changes. Men actually stop having as much testosterone, and women start having more testosterone. And there's different things that are going on in your bodies and all that kind of stuff. But the psychology still stays the same. And if you want a man to value you, he has to work for and earn you, or he has to be in scarcity, right? That's another reason why men will value women, is because they don't have a lot of options, right? Most guys don't have a lot of options. Like, let's just be real with it. And unless you're dating players, he probably doesn't have a whole lot of options on what he's looking for and who he's trying to meet. And so if you're talking to him and you want him to value you, right? You want him to think highly of you, then there has to be something there, right? You can't be like every other woman that he meets and expect him to value you. Just like he can't be like every other guy that you meet and expect you to value him, right? So if you meet just one of a sea of men, why would you value that guy over this guy or over that guy or over that guy, right? He has to display himself in a way that shows that he's higher value than the other guys if he wants you to value him and feel like you want to have something more with him and be in a relationship with him and all that kind of stuff. It's the same thing, right? On both sides. And so you don't have to do anything if you don't want to. But if you're having problems, then this is a way to make sure that men value you and you're getting into a situation where men value you. If you're not having problems and all the guys that you meet immediately are like, oh, you're the most amazing woman I've ever met and we should be together, and you think that they're really awesome and you get together and everything's really great and awesome and amazing, cool, just keep doing what you're doing, right? And if that's not happening, then try something a little bit different, right? Try using psychology to your advantage. Is that a game? No more than wearing makeup is a game, or wearing high heels is a game, or wearing a sexy dress to impress a man is a game, right? Like all of those things, you could look at all of those things as a game, right? Because it's all in the mating game of what it is that we're doing as people, right? Where it's like this thing where if you go into any kingdom, like any animal kingdom out there, and you look at the animals that are interacting with each other, they're playing this game. They're all doing these things with each other. And there's certain things that make them look at one peacock and say, oh, this peacock is a lot more interesting than that peacock, right? And so you'll see it, and it's happening. And when a male peacock meets a female peacock, there's a peacock dance, right? And he's like, right? And he throws up his feathers, and he's like, look at my feathers. I'm a sexy peacock. Don't you think I'm amazing, right? And the female peacock's like, ooh, let me see. Ooh, those awesome, amazing feathers. Ooh, is this the kind of peacock that I want to be with? I don't know. Right? And that's how it works, right? It happens all over the animal kingdom with everything. It happens with people all over the world. We're all in this mating dance with each other. And this is how it works in the human kingdom. And if you want to be valued and you're currently not being valued for the way that you're currently doing things, then try something a little bit different, And if you don't want to, then don't. It's up to you. It's up to you, Len. Do whatever works for you. This is just my suggestion. Fiona sent me a super sticker. Thanks for sending me a super sticker there, Fiona. You're awesome. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sarah says, I feel like asking questions after a couple months of dating or exclusivity dating is a must, especially if he isn't showing more interest in wanting to move to a relationship. Yeah, I mean, you should be asking questions at the beginning, right? Should be asking questions at the beginning. Should be asking them questions at the beginning. Linda says, hey, Matthew, thanks for everything. Just married in August. Well, congratulations there, Linda. Good job. Long distance actually made us stronger. It can. A lot of people kind of poo-poo long distance because it's difficult. It's really difficult, right? And I think it's like 42% of long distance situations don't end up in a lasting relationship, or they end within 6 months or something like that. She says, it was a challenge for both of us, but so grateful for the time together, soon to be always. Well, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you, Linda. High fives to you. Thanks for being a part of our community, and thanks for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yep, 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 yep. Yep, 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 yep. Yep, 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 yep. Excellent information. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Sandra says, I like all your advice. It's working for me. Well, that's awesome to hear, Sandra. And I am certainly having standards and boundaries in place. It's all about me now. You are amazing. Thank you. By the way, you're looking so good as always. Well, thanks, Sandra. I'm glad this is working for you. And it can. If you use this stuff, it can work for you. If y'all haven't gotten my program yet, you can go to theforeverwomanformula.com, pick up the program there, and check it out. You can get it for free. You can get it for free. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, 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 yes. Susan says, how do you know if you dislike something if you don't try it at least once? That's true. That's true. It's true. Margaret says, how do I say I see a difference in how you text and act when you are away at work the last 6 weeks? Well, are you in a relationship with him? If you are, you can just have a conversation with him and just tell him that you notice that this happens, and He'll probably be like, yeah, it did. And, you can just, if it's a problem for you, I'm going to guess that it's a problem for you, right? Like, my guess is that you're asking about it because it's a problem that he's kind of pulling away when, he's away at work. But it's one of those things where, right, he's working. So, he's probably, he's probably busy, right? Like, you can't, like, it's one of those things where we get women sometimes that come in here and they like, they have these weird unrealistic expectations about what they want a man to be doing, right? Like, oh, he's away at work and he doesn't talk to me when he's at work. And it's like, yeah, he's working, right? People shouldn't be talking to you at work. I mean, really, they should be focusing on their work and what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. And so if he's, talking to you when he's working, it's kind of a weird thing, and so you might want to think that, you might want to think about that. You might want to think about whether this is a problem. If it is a problem, I mean, you can just have a conversation with him and just ask him about it, see what's going on with him, assuming that you guys are in a relationship. It shouldn't be a problem to have a conversation with him and just talk to him about his behaviors and what's going on with him at work and all that kind of stuff. That should be normal conversations that you guys have with each other all the time, right? Like, hey, how's work going? It seems like you've been really busy. You haven't been as active contacting me when you've been away at work. And, so I've been missing your text messages. I've been missing your calls. I've been missing, the chatting that we do. Right. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, I've had this going on. Right. It's a normal conversation. This is normal conversation stuff. You shouldn't be asking me about it. You should be asking him about it, assuming that you guys are in a relationship. Right. And if you're not in a relationship, then you should be abundance dating, and like, guys should be competing for your time and attention, and you shouldn't be so focused on what it is that he's doing. So those are really the main options and ways that you should be looking at it from this. If you're in a relationship, it's a normal conversation to have. If you're not in a relationship, you shouldn't be focused on how much he's contacting you or not contacting you. You should be abundance dating and letting him prove to you that he's the right man for you over time. So I hope that helps you there, Margaret. I hope that helps. I hope it helps. I hope that helps. Deborah says, I don't need advice on how to be a challenge, especially from a man. Not my job to make a man realize teamwork makes the dream works. This is ridiculous. Okay. Okie dokie. Lulu says he invited me twice, and second time, then he mentioned if he can come over when I said I'm a good cook. Said it's not a good idea to meet at home. He said he won't do things I don't want. Advice, please. Well, it's up to you. Do you feel safe with this man coming over to your place? Do you feel like you can trust yourself around this man and make sure that you don't do things that you're going to regret later? Right? Those are the questions that you should be asking yourself there, Lulu. Right? Is this a man that you can trust? How long have you known this man? And you're saying, he invited me twice, and second time he mentioned that he can come over. I mean, it doesn't sound like you guys have known each other for very long. And my suggestion is that you set a boundary, right? You want to set a boundary and say, hey, like, I think that you're really cool and I'd love to cook for you sometime in the future because, I think that you're going to love my cooking because my cooking is amazing and awesome. And I know you love food and you're going to absolutely love it. And it's something that you would absolutely dream. You're going to eat my food. And you're going to go home and you're going to dream about it. And you're going to be dreaming about my food. And you're going to wake up thinking about my food. And you're going to want to marry me because of how amazing my food is. And I'm going to be like, hey, whoa. This is a little fast for me. You're trying to get married to me. We've only known each other for a few weeks now. Right. And so I was kind of running off on a tangent there, but basically you want to set a boundary and just say, hey, look, I'd love to cook for you at some point in the future, but right now, I feel like we need to get to know each other a little bit better before I invite you over to my place or I go over to yours, and then you want to throw out a suggestion on something else that you can do. Like, hey, how about we meet up again this week for, a hike or for coffee or for whatever, or just how about we meet up during the week sometime in a public place, right? Something like that. And so basically what you're doing is you're letting him know that you'd love to do this and you think it's going to be fun and he's going to love it and all that kind of stuff, but you're just not quite ready yet. You're just not quite there yet. And if he asks any questions about why, you can just tell him, just let him know, look, hey, I just don't feel safe. I just, I don't feel like we have that kind of a connection yet. I feel like, I really like you and I'm attracted to you, but I'm not quite at the point where I feel like, I'm feeling quite safe enough around you to, have you over at my place or me have you over at yours or whatever. Right. And if he keeps asking, just let him know and set a boundary for it and make sure that he is following your boundaries. And because that's your job is to make sure that you have boundaries and slow him down and that you're getting your standards and your needs met. And his job is to push things forward and try to move you to a romantic sexual relationship together, right? That's the man's job, because if he waits for you, you're probably going to end up finding somebody else and he's going to end up in the friend zone and hating himself. And so he does need to, try to work towards that. And you need to make sure that you're feeling safe and that you're putting yourself into a good position. Does that make sense for you there, Lulu? I hope that makes sense. I hope it makes sense. I hope it makes sense. Sarah says, hi, Matt. If you have resisted hooking up and then hooked up, can you backtrack? No. We already talked about this, Sarah. Do not backtrack. Other Sarah says, yep, that's my last exclusive relationship. The thing was, he knew how his life was. He pursued me, though. Okay. Nicole says, preach, Matthew. Everything you're saying makes sense. It makes me feel good about being single, but being open to love when it's the right time, with the right man, in the right situation. All right, maybe she didn't say all that, but I did, and I thought it was funny. So funny. Sherry says, I do give him space, but he doesn't chase me. Okay, well, it's okay. It's okay. He doesn't have to necessarily chase you, right? It depends on what you mean by chasing, right? If nothing else, and depends on what kind of a relationship you have, but ultimately what you want is he needs to prove himself in the beginning, and then you need to build things together, right? And you want him to be doing the majority of the work up until a committed relationship. And even after that, it's in your best interest that he's doing the majority of the work. Granada says, the world's most handsome man, Matt. Well, you know what? I appreciate, I don't know if that's true, but I appreciate that. I'll take it on there, Granada. So thank you. Amy says, could you talk about number one again? I missed it. No, you can watch the video again. Emily says, what's the best way to take a friendship and turn it into a relationship, but have him think it was his decision? So here's the way that you want to do it, Emily. That's actually a really good question. And what you want to do is you want to plant ideas in his mind, right? So you start asking questions about things, right? Just start asking questions like, hold on. What you want to ask questions about is like around like kissing, right? Or romantic things, right? Sexual type of things. That's the type of questions that you want to ask him. So, ask him things like, hey, where's your favorite place to be kissed? I know this is going to sound, and you might want to do it with like a little bit of preface, especially if you haven't had conversations like this or falling into this realm before, but you might want to say things like, I know this might sound a little strange or whatever, or a little like it came out of left field, but where's your favorite place to be kissed? I wanted to get a man's opinion about something. Where is your favorite place that you like to be kissed? I want to know if it's kind of similar to my favorite place that I like to be kissed, right? And so you get to hear him start talking about what he likes, right? Like where he likes to be kissed and all that kind of stuff. And basically, what you're doing is you're setting up uh, things so that he starts thinking about kissing you, right? So he starts thinking about kissing and all that kind of stuff. And you start talking about what you like in terms of being kissed. And so he starts thinking about you in terms of kissing, right? And you start moving more and more into that realm of talking about kissing and more type of intimate stuff. You can ask him things like, um, you know, a fun one is like, where do you like to, or like, I have another question. And I know if this is too much for you, just let me know. But I've always kind of wondered this about guys. Like, what do you wear when you sleep at night? Like when you sleep in bed at night, what do you wear? Right. And so basically, all you're doing is you're taking a little bit of a risk here because you're asking kind of risque questions and you're moving it into this realm of things that he normally wouldn't be talking about. But you're doing it in a way where you're bringing up these topics where you need to have answers for these questions as well, but you're also getting him to start thinking, right? You're getting his primal brain to start thinking about these sexualized things while you're around him and with him. And there's other things that you can do as well, right? Like flirting or being playful or just having fun with him. Like all that kind of stuff it like triggers his brain. It talks to a different part of his brain. If all of your talks are like intellectual and stuff, you want to start moving more into the realm of emotional, because that emotional, fun, playful, kind of flirty vibe, that signals his brain to be like, oh, playful and flirty and fun with you, right? Which is outside the realm of friendship and inside the realm of there's something more going on here. And so you want to combine that with those questions. And there's a bunch of other questions that you can do. There's other things that you can do as well. There's this thing that I call force framing. And force framing is really, really powerful. And basically what it is you throw on top of him these ideas about what you want or what you see or what you observe, and in ways that he can't really deny it, right? So let me give you an example. So let's say that he's looking at you and you're just looking at each other and you're like, hey, stop looking at me like that, right? And he has no idea how he's looking at you, right? And so he's like, what are you talking about? And you're like, you know what I'm talking about. Stop looking at me like that, right? And he's like, what? And you're like, yeah. And then later you're like, oh, you're giving me that look again. And he's like, what look are you talking about? What are you talking about, right? And you're like, you keep looking at me like you're attracted to me. And you need to stop that. You need to stop that right now, right? You stop that. You're giving me that look, right? Or you can take it to the next level. Let's say that you know that you're both attracted to each other and you're in that realm of wanting to take it further. You can say, hey, you're giving me that look again. And he's like, what look? And you're like, you're looking at me like you want to kiss me. And so basically I call it force framing because you're kind of forcing this frame around him of this thing where you're putting him in this position of saying, hey, you are the pursuer. You are this man who's attracted to me and I'm noticing it. And you're putting it on top of this frame of him looking at you, which he doesn't know how he's looking at you. Maybe he is looking at you like that. He's going to be like, maybe I am looking at her like that. I don't know. Right. And so you throw that on top and all of a sudden it changes the dynamics of what you're talking about. So I kind of ran off on a tangent there, but I hope that helps there, Emily. I hope it helps. I hope it helps. I hope it helps. Jessica says, thank you for this information. You are welcome. Lynn says, you're amazing. Hair looks great. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Sophia says, can some of these principles be applied to getting an ex back? I use no contact each time he pulls away, but feel like I'm manipulating him rather than being a challenge. Well, no contact isn't for when he pulls away. No contact is for after a breakup, a period where you don't talk to him at all, right? It's not a period of, he pulled away for a couple of days or a week and I don't talk to him. It's like he broke up with me. And in order to get myself back to a place where I'm strong and I'm healthy and I'm powerful again, I need to not talk to him. I need to not look at his stuff. I need to not think about him. I need to focus on myself. I need to focus on my life, and I need to heal myself. That's what no contact is about. It's not leaning back isn't no contact. Those are not the same things. They're not the same things, right? So if you're dating your ex, let's say that you've been in contact with him and you started seeing each other, you started talking to each other, you started dating each other again, that is not no contact at any point in there. You're not doing no contact, right? You might want to lean back because you want him pursuing you, but you don't want to be in a space where you're just completely not talking to him, or you're ignoring him, or you're not replying to him, or you're not reaching out to him at all, or anything like that, right? You want to make sure that he knows that you're interested in hanging out and meeting up and talking and all those things. You want to show interest, but you also want him to pursue you. That's what you want to do, which no contact only applies right after a breakup, when you're no longer talking and you're trying to get yourself to a place where you're not worried about him anymore. And yeah, all these things still do apply, right? And you should still be in abundance dating. You should still be doing all these things. I talk about all this stuff in my program. If you don't have it, it's Restart Your Relationship, commitmentconnection.com/restart. You can get it for $1 right now. I don't know how long I'm going to be doing that. So if you want to get it now, this is the time to get it. This is the time to get it. Anna says, how do you balance being grateful and sticking to your preferences when a man gives or takes you to places not quite up to your standards? Does that usually mean we're not a match? Well, it might mean that you have a different standard for things that you like, right? And that could mean that you're not a match, because if you're like, I love to, like, I know this woman who loves to, she makes lots of money, right? She makes lots and lots of money, and she loves to go to like nice hotels. She loves to go to spas, and the guys that she dates, the guy that she's in a relationship with right now, they almost never want to go to places that she wants to go to, right? She always wants to spend lavishly and, like just gold star everything, 5-star everything, where the guys are like, yeah, I just want to stay in an Airbnb. And, I don't care about having lush pillows that are, fluffed every day when I leave and all that kind of stuff, right? I don't care about that. And so you have to decide how important that is to you and your lifestyle and what you're doing with a guy. And you can communicate that, but at the end of the day, it's up to him. And if he's, like, as far as what he wants to do, right? You're not going to force what you want onto him. And if you do, it can feel really bad, especially with her. One of her big challenges was that these guys were like, they didn't want to spend the money on doing all these things, right? They're like, I don't want to spend money to go to this ridiculously nice restaurant when I like, this other kind of a restaurant, and that's just fine for me. And that's in my budget and, whatever. Because if you like to spend lavishly and you like to go to all these like really nice, luxurious places and stuff, and he is trying to make sure that he has enough money to support a family, or to, be in a relationship and take care of someone, or, to make sure that he's safe and secure in case he loses his job, or that he's investing for the future, or any of that kind of stuff. And you don't care about that, or you have enough money so that you don't have to worry about that, or whatever. He's going to feel like you're a mismatch if you're trying to force him to go to luxurious places. Right? He's going to feel like he can't live around you because it's going to cost too much for him to live like that. And it's going to feel really, really uncomfortable for him. And he's not going to be able to reach his goals and do what it is that he's trying to do in his life. And you're going to distract him from that. And so you have to decide whether, what's okay with you and what you want, and, what you're doing. And if you're one of those kinds of people that likes luxurious things, you can make a decision there, right? You can be one of the things that she started doing was that she started just being like, okay, I'll pay for it, right? I'll pay for it, because she was like, I don't want to go to those places. And I understand that you have this need to make sure that you have enough money to pay for things and all that kind of stuff. And so you're not going to take me to those places. So I'm just going to pay for that stuff. And that's okay. Right? It's okay to work out some kind of different kind of a setup for you and your relationship and your dating scenario based on you and your needs, and the men that you meet and their needs, and what's going on with you and your situations. So I hope that makes sense there, Anna. I hope that makes sense. Felicidad says, thanks for the informative video. You're welcome. Eve says, I see him almost every day and I still miss him. What should I do? Well, I don't know. Is that a problem? What are you asking about? What's the challenge that you're trying to get over here, Eve? Let us know in the chat. Let us know in the chat. Let us know in the chat. Deborah says, let me guess. This guy, oh, we have it's not a woman's job to make men happy. How do you all not know that? It's not your job to make men happy, right? It's not. But why would a man, Deborah, let me ask you this. Why would a man want to be in a relationship with you if his life isn't enhanced by it? And why would you want to be in a relationship with a man if your life isn't enhanced by it? Think about that, Deborah. Think about that, right? Like, why would anybody want to be in a relationship with you if you don't bring something to their life, if you don't enrich their life, if you don't make them feel better about themselves when they're around you? And why would you want to be with a man if he doesn't make you feel better about yourself when you're around him, and if he doesn't enrich your life? We need to be adding value to each other's lives. We should be in charge of our own happiness. Absolutely. You are responsible for your own happiness. And if you want a relationship, if you want a good relationship, then you absolutely should make sure that you're adding value to a man's life, just like he should be adding value to your life. Relationships go both ways. Think about it. Think about it, Deborah. Think about it. Sherry says, how do you get him to physically show me love like a hug? Well, it might not be his love language, right? So there's a love languages things. If you're not familiar with that concept, go and check out Gary Chapman's 5 Love Languages book. It's a great book. It's a great read, really interesting. But the way that you want to do it is you want to first let him know, right? You just want to let him know and see what he does, right? And you can always offer and volunteer as well, because some guys, especially in today's day and age, they're very reluctant to touch women, especially if they haven't touched a woman before, because they're worried about harassment charges and all kinds of other things. And so it's usually, sometimes if a guy's not doing that, you can just do it or create something like that with him. You can also frame it or let him know that you really love hugs. Like, oh, it's so, like, you know what, like you're just talking to each other and you're just like, hey, you know what I really love? You know what one thing I just absolutely love? Hugs. Like, it's one of my favorite things in the world. I love to get, are you a hugger? Right? And just ask him that and just see what he says and just have a conversation about it. And you're like, yeah, I love to hug my friends. I like to, it's like one of my favorite things when I meet people. I like to hug them. Like, it's just, I love hugs. Right? And if you start talking like that, he'll start getting the idea. And then later you can frame things like, oh, it's so hot, it's so attractive when a guy, hugs me. Like, it's just, I don't know, it just makes me feel so safe and so taken care of, and talk about it in terms like that, like he's being more masculine and you're stepping into your feminine when somebody is when a guy's hugging you, and the guy's going to want to start doing that. And if he doesn't, if you haven't initiated any kind of touch contact at all, you can start doing that, and just like regular, like small touches, like touching his arm or touching his hand, when he has his hand out, and you just touch it real quick and move it away, or you just touch his arm real quick, or he does something that you really like and you're like, oh, and you come up and hug him real quick, and then, you let go or whatever, right? You're just creating an initiation of that touch, and making it so that he feels like he's allowed to start doing that with you. That's what you want to do. I hope that makes sense there, Sherry. I hope that makes sense. I hope it makes sense. I hope it makes sense. I hope it makes sense. Susan says, why do you always assume it's the guy that pulls away? I don't always assume that it's the guy that pulls away. In fact, women are far more likely to pull away and break up with. Women are twice as likely to pull away, to break up with a guy, than a guy is to break up with a woman. Women are 150% more likely to ghost a man than a man is to ghost a woman. However, if you get bored with a guy and you lose interest in him and you pull away and you stop being interested in him, you're probably not coming to me for advice about it. If a guy is losing interest and getting bored and pulling away from you, there's a high probability chance that you are coming to me for information about it. Does that make sense, Susan? I don't assume that guys do it, but if you're doing it, you're probably not seeing it as a problem that you need my help with. I've been doing this. I've been working with women since 2013. I've been working in the dating advice industry since 2005. I have never, ever gotten a question from a woman saying that she pulls away and how do I stop pulling away from men? I've never had that question before. And every day I get questions from women asking about guys pulling away. So that's your answer, Susan. I don't assume it. That's just what women ask me about, and that's what they need my help with. And so that's what I talk about. Ambika says, there should be more guys like you, Matt. Well, I appreciate that, Ambika. I appreciate that. There should be more women like you saying sweet things to guys like me. Semi-Precious says, is it okay to kiss and make out at the first date, or is that bad as hooking up? No, I mean, it's up to you, right? Like, what can you do without feeling overly attached and like it's a problem, right? And, has he earned it, right? Is he investing? Are you doing all the things that we talked about? That's what you want to ask yourself, right? Is he investing? Is he earning it? Is he valuing you? Is he doing stuff for this? And if he's not, and he feels like it's too easy to get you, then he's not going to value as much. That's how it works, right? And if you're getting overly attached because you kissed a guy, then you probably shouldn't do it, right? And so all of this stuff, all the stuff that I'm talking about is really just, a lot of it's really just common sense. It's just looking at things and saying, okay, what makes the most sense here for you to do, right? And what I do is I'm a researcher, and I look for patterns and what works and what doesn't work. I work with women to help them figure out, and I look at hundreds of thousands of women and what has worked in their situation, what doesn't. And I take the patterns of things that work and I put them into a system, which is called the Forever Woman program. And that system is all about how to make sure that you get into the relationship that you want to get into based on patterns of women who have gone through similar things that you're trying to go through and got into a relationship. Are there other ways to do things? Absolutely. Can you do absolutely nothing and end up in a great relationship? Sure. Can you hook up with a guy on the first date and end up married to him? Absolutely. There are women that do it all the time. However, what's the probability that that's going to happen, right? My job is to give you the highest probability of the outcome that you want. That's what my job is. And so that's what we're doing here. And if you haven't checked it out yet, go ahead and check out the Forever Woman Formula. You can check it out at theforeverwomanformula.com. So, all right, we are going to wrap things up here and end things. So thank you so much for being with us today. We're going to end with the Queen's mantra. So here's what I want you to do. First, I just want you to take a deep breath in and out. Take another deep breath in and out. One more time, deep breath in. And just breathe out all the stress, all the frustration, all the worry, all the feelings that you're not good enough, all the concerns that you have about what's going on in your dating life right now, any stress, anxiety that you have, just blow it all out. And so we're going to say the Queen's mantra. And every time we say the Queen's mantra, we say it 3 times. And so you want to, if you're doing this and you do it outside of like us talking about it, you want to emotionalize it. You want to think about it. You want to repeat it as many times as you can. If you're having frustrations or issues, just go through this exercise again, where you just take a few deep breaths and then just say the Queen's mantra. And so let's go ahead and say it. I am valuable. I am worthy. I deserve to be cherished. I am valuable. I am worthy. I deserve to be cherished. I am valuable. I am worthy. I deserve to be cherished. And just remember that you are valuable and that you are worthy and that you do deserve to be cherished. Relationships, in my opinion, they're a spiritual path. They're a path to growing into a more actualized human being, to evolving into the person that you ultimately want to be, to becoming the best person that you can become. They're going to challenge you. They're going to frustrate you. They're going to be difficult sometimes, but ultimately it's about getting into relationships that are worth it. And if it's not worth it, then you shouldn't do it. Relationships are something that can be the biggest pain in our life, or they can be the biggest pleasure. They can be the biggest source of trauma, or they can be the biggest source of love and satisfaction and value that we receive from this life. And so make sure that you're getting yourself into a great situation. Make sure that you're getting yourself into a situation where you're being valued, and that you're not getting into situations if a man doesn't value you. If he doesn't value you, that's fine. Don't force it. Don't fight it. Don't push it. Don't prod it. Just let it be. And if it happens and he comes and he values you and he wants to raise himself up to your standards, that's awesome. And if he doesn't, that's fine too. You'll find a man that does. Just follow the system, trust in the process, and have faith that your future is going to be brighter and bigger and better than anything in your present or in your past. So that's it. I will speak with you again soon. And always remember, you are worth it. Have a good night, good day, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And I will speak